Welcome to the Divorce Diaries podcast. One man's anonymous and live account of if he should get a divorce or stay married. He's been cheated on, and he's cheated. Protecting the innocent with changed voice patterns, the omission of names, ages, and genders. His authentic journey and account of the daily events of his marriage are helping him sort out his feelings and not get lost in the ups or the downs. New episodes are released daily. Welcome to the Divorce Diaries podcast. Entire seasons are released on Patreon weeks before anywhere else at Divorce Diaries Podcast Patreon page. Link in description. Now for today's episode.
Let's shoot this from the hip. This is a late recording. I got some news today from my wife that was really awesome to hear, and I just connected the dots to something and things that happened over the course of our marriage that were put into words best by her. As usual, she's more eloquent than I ever was. Her words are very succinct, and somehow she knows how to, like I joke around and I call her the wordsmith, because she just like put her sentences together in such a clear way. So she says, the events of today, I'm not talking to most of my children right now. My youngest is upset at me, and I'm going to try to figure out why that is. My middle child told me, sort of cleared some things up about everything that I had done, and I definitely made some apologies today that were well deserved. Gave them to her because emotional person, an emotional man. Whenever I was going through something really heavy with my wife, it seems like I always reacted and dumped on her and everyone around me. Sometimes I wonder professionally how I survived. Maybe I was able to compartmentalize at work. Maybe I didn't treat those people the same way. Or maybe wielding that Thor hammer of emotion came off as strength in the workplace, but devastated everyone in my family life. So my wife, for a little bit of a backstory, all of the things that have happened over the course of my marriage, these last few months, this last year, my wife, we're middle-aged, and she decided to tell my kids things that happened when we were in a 10th grade relationship, 11th grade relationship, senior year relationship, till we, got married after that. So my young children are asking me about reasons that I broke up with mom and what I did when we broke up when I was 16 years old. And obviously the only way the kids that are born that so far after such a time would know that is because my wife talked to them. So that's just a little kernel of what I have had to try to navigate over the course of my marriage. My wife just talks to people, anyone. There's no barrier of person she won't talk to. There's no boundary of person that she won't tell something to. And then I find myself in this I'm in a room full of informed people, and I'm not. I'm in a room full of people that know something personally and only from her side. So that feeling of being ambushed, feeling of being on my toes, feel of eggshells, the fear of what's coming next, the overall, which would be great if it was curiosity, but just apprehension. It's like that scared dog that's just like, are you going to kick me this time? Whew. It's like you're always tense. And someone's always telling you to relax. This is actually a part of the narcissistic abuse that I've understood that I was dealing with, that I did not understand I was dealing with over the course of my marriage. I did not understand that abuse, quote unquote, happening in that way. I didn't understand that, but that frog analogy comes to mind. When the frog is in the boiling water, it will just stay there because the water temperature increases at such a slow pace that the frog doesn't realize it's boiling to death. I didn't realize anything because I just always looked at these things as isolated incidents, not a consistently something consistent that I would have to deal with and worry about. So my wife said today, sorry for the belabored points, I just wanted to give a little bit of a backstory and a little bit of a history. Because of the talking behind people's backs that my wife has done. I'm not saying that she didn't have anything to say. She did. I obviously did things that were, in her mind, worthy of telling to other people. So this time she's told our children things about things that are happening with us in our marriage. I did not tell the children anything, so the children have my wife's version of a story. And for the most part, I think if COVID or past elections or anything has taught us anything, even as simply put as your favorite football team, if we don't understand and acknowledge that people are, I think we'd like to think we are more complicated and sophisticated than we really are, but in fact, we are a lot simpler and stupider than we'd like to really admit to. We take sides, and generally, when someone hears a story, they tend to side with what they've heard because that audible interpretation, hearing, you experienced that. So that's something that you experienced. And the other person didn't give you an experience. They didn't give you their side. You weren't there to see the altercation or the fallout to actually say, oh, I see what he did. I was there. I watched this person. I watched that person. You just say, oh, that's what I was told. So that's what happened. Done. And that's where I am with my children. And my wife is sort of, I think, trying to do her best to get the family, quote unquote, back together. Not the marriage, but the family on a better path. And so she's trying to, full disclosure, I don't know what she's trying to do. But from the outside looking in, I'm watching someone try to unknowingly get a genie back into the bottle that they let out. So, yes, the children know that my wife and I had a breakup and I started talking to someone else when we were in high school. My children don't know my side of that story. So all they know is Daddy cheated on Mommy. And this is before we got married, so, but Daddy cheated on Mommy. Well, that's not really what happened. Actually, I'm not going to go into it here because I don't want to place any blame on my wife. All I will say to anyone that's listening to this, if you were in a high school relationship that was off and on, you know what happened in some of your encounters with other people, not encounters with other people. Whether you were the one that got broken up with, didn't break up with the other person, did the breaking up, did the talking to someone else by the lockers or whatever, you know what it was like being a child in your first couple of, not even relationships, because I don't know if you can call them that. Some people were in some, serious relationships in high school. But serious usually just meant long-term. Serious didn't really mean, it's kind of, you definitely form a connection and a bond, but quote unquote, serious relationships are hard to come by when you both are living with your parents, having curfews, can't talk on the phone until a certain time or getting home from sports practice. If you're living that middle class life, like, it's not a relationship. Getting your parents to drop you off at the mall so you guys can hang out for a few hours while mom and her friend go catch a movie. But it's a relationship nonetheless, because it's a relationship on the level that it can be. Teenagers, young teenagers, whatever. So, I'm sorry, making a short story long, as usual. My wife says today, I always feel like I have to choose. And that is a really sucky situation to be in. Feeling like you always have to choose. I don't envy her position. I feel sorry for her. Because I watch her going back and forth. She's carved out a relationship, I believe. I don't talk too much with my oldest about it, but she's carved out a relationship with him. But because in some people's eyes in the family, he's public enemy number one, she can't ever tell any of us that she's getting together with him, or that she gets together with him, or what she does with him. She can't tell anyone that. So she's got to live that secret life. Then she knows that me and another child aren't really talking because the other child's so upset at me for things that mom told them about me. And now she's hoping that we can have a better relationship. And I'm like, you should really go back to that child and say, I'm so sorry. I should have never said anything to you about what happened with me and your dad. That was wrong of me. Please try to put it out of your mind. But she won't. But she's trying to get everything together, so she's always got to choose. So on the one hand, she's choosing between me and our oldest and our other kids. And she's choosing between the other kids and me, and then me and the other kids. And then when two of our kids are having altercations, she has to say one thing to one to make sure that she's okay privately, while saying another thing to the other one to make sure that they're okay. And she's always got to choose. And she said it today. She verbalized it. It's like, I always feel like I have to choose. And that's how I've always felt. I know, because I had to take down every single episode because of my rants, my crazy batshit emotional rants. Because I did. I made a lot of this stuff about me, because honestly, when you're feeling pain, this is called Divorce Diaries. I'm recording what I want about me and how I feel. This is my fucking platform. And if I want to record my fucking feelings, I will do that. If you don't want to listen to them, please don't. Because my family found out about this podcast, which is why it is being recorded differently, because it needed to be. It didn't need to be my carving into a diary of my anger, treating my diary like a voodoo doll, and being so pissed off about life and why my circumstances so screwed up, and just wallowing in sorrow and anger. That was not very, it's not a diary. Diary is supposed to be, anyway, to me, a recording of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions, but not a recording of you being emotional in almost every way, because those aren't really your thoughts. You're just recording your emotions. In diary, I want to record events. How did it work out that day? What was said? Yeah, how did I feel? But not a volcanic eruption of how I felt. A clear interpretation of my feelings. And the clear interpretation of my feelings, with my wife saying that she always feels that she has to choose. Being married to her, I always felt like she had to choose also. And I never knew what she was going to choose. I'd always hoped, from situation to situation, I hope she chooses me. Sometimes she would, sometimes she wouldn't. I really hope you choose our marriage. Sometimes she would, sometimes she wouldn't. I'd really hope you choose to save money for our children for the future. Well, there's no sometimes she would or wouldn't. She never did. So everything that I ever thought or felt or wanted, I was always knowing she's got a choice to make. And now you can almost cue the Jeopardy theme song. What will she choose? And I have to be honest, I didn't fully lean into what I wanted. And that wasn't fair to her or me. I wanted someone, let me not do that, someone. I wanted my wife to choose me every single time. And I wanted the times that I wasn't chosen for the reasons to be so good, so compelling, that I'm like, yeah, I would have made that choice too. That's what I wanted. And now everyone in the family, which she's going to just continue to shrink her circle. Because I always had the opposite problem of my wife. And I never felt like I was making a choice. I felt like I was always like doing something that was in line with a decision that I'd made or a choice that I'd made some time ago. Like, I've broken my marriage vows, some of them, I guess. I don't know. I haven't like taken inventory, but like to have and to hold, I don't know, whatever that means. But to have the person and hold that person, like, because you can't hold anyone else, and it's like the forsake all others for you thing. So that's definitely related to sex, but holding my wife, I've definitely made choices that came off like I wasn't choosing her above anyone else. But in my way, in my logic, I was choosing her by choosing to move from my choosing to move from my place to in with my mom when we had some financial problems. It's like, yeah, I made that. The better choice would have been to understand that it would take us even longer to save for a house and move to like a small apartment somewhere. But it would have just been us, and all of the problems and headaches that came from my family would have never landed on my marriage. They would have never done that, and we would have been stronger for it. So looking back now, I would have done that. But I was only focused on getting back to where we were, which was being homeowners as a nuclear family under the same roof. I opted for the cheapest way monetarily to keep us in this damn house, to get us back to where we were, by living with my mom. But yeah, I might have done it sort of quick enough with financially, but it cost us so much more time-wise. I'm sorry. That definitely contributed to the demolishment of our marriage, or the fracturedness and the horrible stuff that came from us living with my mom. It was absolutely terrible. It was not good for our marriage at all. But I can't put that genie back in the bottle. But that's my justification. To save money and we could do it faster. But we would have been together, and I should have prioritized us being together more than I prioritized us. Just whatever. So yeah, I always felt like my choice was always my wife, number one, in my family, number one. That was always my choice. There was no other choice. But my wife, I'm so glad that she's talking to me more and she's saying things, because had I been listening before, I would have moved differently. I don't know. On the one hand, we probably would have gotten a divorce much sooner if I was a little bit more, if I paid a little bit more attention to the person that she was and the person that I am. And I'm not saying we'd be divorced because she's such a piece of shit. Nope. I'm saying that we probably would be divorced because we're so different morally from each other. We just move through the world differently. So I believe that we are not compatible. at all. And I think that if we had no children, we would have had the most fun together and just kept it at that level. I believe we would have had the best marriage ever. But adding other things to be responsible for together, how I handle responsibility and my wife handles responsibility, are two very different things. When we worked together in concert, it was simpatico. I mean, it was poetry in motion. But those times are few and farther between. There was likely trust breached for both of us, and you can't get it back. So when you got one person that always feels like they have to make a choice, and the other person, I'm always wondering, yeah, you do have to make a choice. So what are you going to choose this time? Never knowing. I had no security, and she always felt like she had to make a choice. Or she had, I'm not going to say she had no priorities, but if you take it like that, like, oh, what were your priorities if you always felt you had to choose? Because if you had a good line of priorities, oh, husband, children, career, or husband, career, children, or husband and / children, then career. If that's your pecking order, these are the things that are important to me, there is no choice to make. But if it's a more fluid situation and it's like, well, I mean, career now, well, okay, well, this kid and then this kid, or my husband, well, me, what do I, okay, well, this other family member, what should, okay, I think I just, yeah. No one will feel like a priority. No one will. So yeah, she was right. She does always have to make a choice. And that's what I've always felt. Will you choose me?
Wow. That was the Divorce Diaries podcast. The Daily Saga will continue tomorrow. The full season's episodes are on Patreon now. Subscribe for early access. Click the Patreon link in the description. Hopefully, these entries help our anonymous recorder as a form of his own personal therapy. That's his hope and his intention. Will these recordings of life's curveballs lead this family to the best resolution in the end? We'll keep listening. New episodes are released daily on all podcast players, but all episodes are available on Patreon at Divorce Diaries Podcast Patreon page. Until next time.